My name is James David Faulkner.
Nancy Faulkner.
Question, your answer, kind of. Okay, so when did you join the Navy and why did you join the Navy?
I joined the Navy in 1963 because I wanted to support this great country of the United States of America and travel and check the other forces. I thought the Navy would be more travel and more suitable for me, and it turned out to be a good thing for me, being in the United States Navy. Being in the United States Navy.
Awesome. So next is, tell me a little bit about your experience in the Navy and what you did and kind of, just go through your experience from beginning to end.
Well, everybody goes through boot camp. You learn how to shoot and swim and row and march and fight fires. And then I had a year of shore duty, which we did a little bit of everything in commissary and kind of a buyer for the Navy for tools and what have you. And then I got orders approximately a year later for the USS Vancouver, which was being commissioned on the East Coast and coming around the Horn to Long Beach. So I stayed in the barracks at shore duty until the ship arrived. We went aboard the ship, and not long after, Vietnam War started, and we made actually the first landing in Da Nang in Vietnam, and there I ran boats, worked on the ship, worked on the gun mount, on the front gunner's mount, and that was kind of my job. So just the rest of the time, just play cards when you didn't have duty, and when if it was something special, everybody was on board and at the workstation. And so I had various jobs, and they were all great. Well, when you're aboard ship, our main deal was to pick up equipment and Marines and take them to shore. And we did go along the shoreline and what they call light up the beach to make sure it was clear before we would do amphibious boats to bring in the Marines. And anyway, in Vietnam was like any other war. I was young and wanted to support the United States of America, so I did whatever they asked me to do. Well, I met my wife, Nancy Townsend. I had a year shore duty in San Diego, which her brother got out of boot camp and came to San Diego Naval Training Center. And so after we kind of became friends, I went home with him to San Bernardino, California, and met Nancy. At that time, she was a little girl, just didn't think. And so a year or two later, I met her when they moved back to Los Angeles, California. And we went to a party and danced, and that kind of started in writing letters. And then a few years down the line, we decided to get married, and it's been a great 51 years. No, you didn't actually talk on the telephone or in person. Like around the holidays, one year I did send her what they called a not a telegram. It was back then. It was called a radiogram. So it was over the phone lines, and but other than that, it was just through mail, and we'd get our mail every week or sometimes every day, sometimes a couple of weeks, and I'd have a few letters, and then when we'd get into port, I'd mail letters back to her. So that's how we stayed in contact. Well, I'm from a small town, so all of that stuff didn't affect me at all. I just going to high school and worked a little bit and decided to go in the Navy, but I never saw any real protest and all that stuff, and until after I was in the Navy. We read a little bit about it in the paper once in a while, but it didn't seem to affect my life in any way at all. No, my dad was in the United States Army. From in the 40s, I think he got out in 43 or 44, and he was in World War II in the tank division, and then he got out about a year or two before I was born, and he joined and was born in Camp Arkansas, which I was born right down the road in Camp Arkansas. Right after he got an honorable discharge from the United States Army. So he did his time during World War II like I did my time in Vietnam. Well, during my time and my family, it was please, thank you, yes ma'am, yes sir. It didn't make any difference who you were. If an elder, you had respect for people, and you supported the United States of America 100%. There was no protest and that stuff allowed in my era. Well, when we first got married, we liked to dance and go to Las Vegas because that's where we got married. And then we both worked for a while and raised a family. We have 3 great kids, a daughter which has one of our grandsons, a son which has 5 of our grandkids, and a daughter that has 2 of our granddaughters, and it's been a great. But we did lots of things, lots of dancing, and then in a dance club, we square dancing. We traveled to the state competition and to the national competition in St. Louis, Missouri, and we enjoyed all of that. And then our families got grown, and we got up to retirement age. Well, now we travel, and we saw a lot of Canada and Alaska and the East Coast and West Coast. So right now we just actually enjoy traveling, and still work a little bit sometimes when we're home. A lot of love letters. So I would imagine a lot of them say how cute you are, how much I love you, and I guess it paid off because we're still hanging around and we still love each other. I'm proud of what I did and what I learned and help support the state. So anybody that wants to join the military now needs to really think about what they're doing and know that they're going to support the United States and the people's freedom. You're not just going in there to do whatever you want to do. You're going in there to do a job, whatever it takes to support the United States and keep our freedom. It's not all beautiful and joy. You got to put some work in it. So if anybody's going to join the service, I would say that's great, but sit down and think and study a little bit about it before you make a decision. Okay, well, first is my brother-in-law, which is my wife's brother, just older than her. We see him more often, but once a year we have a family reunion. And then another guy was in the service with us like 3 years on the ship together, is Dennis Hallquist, which we all call him Iggy. And so anybody that calls him Iggy, he knows it's from one of our two families. And then there's a Bob Farron, which was real close to us and traveled with us on the ship. And he lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, just outside of Cincinnati, just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. And so a couple of years I was able to go see him. He was a great serviceman in the Navy. And there's another one that was on the ship, is Dave Travis, which I think he lives up in Idaho. And anyway, the five of us get together, not every year, but almost every year in Laughlin, Nevada at a Townsend reunion, which we have in the last weekend of February every year. And it's great to see these five guys together along with all of our family that we get to visit with. Well, you learn to live with what you got. You have your bunk and your space, and you have to get along with your roommates, because it's not just one or two roommates like a college dorm. It's 500 people scattered out, so you might have 50 people in your barracks, not your barracks, in your room. And so the main thing is everybody supports each other and respects each other's ways of living, and then that makes it easy for everybody to do their job. Emergency or just relaxing and going on liberty, playing cards and having fun, going on liberty on the beach or in our room. Sometimes we spend 6 weeks at sea, so you have to really support each other's way of living to get along. You have a shift usually around 8 hours. It could be midnight to 8, or it could be during the day, and then sometimes you had a night watch, they call it, a coxswain or on a lifeboat, or actually up in the steering the ship with the crew. And if you was any kind of a war zone or any kind of response, you would go to your workstation, which mine was on the front anti-aircraft gun mount. And the rest of the time we just maintained boats and ships. And but the food was, to to me was good. You have, you know, when you have that many people, you have all kinds of stories. Like, I'm not going to eat this, but after about a week, you see them sitting at the table. So it's all good. You don't get cheated on your food. And it's not all dry stuff. When you're at sea, you can take on supplies at sea and take on fuel at sea. And so it's, you have fresh, most of the time you have fresh vegetables and fresh beef. And it was, to me, it was great. And between the work you do and the exercise you do, and you're on a good diet, it was all great to me. Between the work you do and the exercise you do, and you're on a good diet, it was all great to me.
Mm-hmm. So, if you could just say for me, like, basically the year that you went into the Vietnam War, just let me know, like, I went into the Vietnam War on this year, like this, like during this time, basically.
But when I joined the Navy, there was not in wartime. So probably in, I'm not sure, 65 maybe, 64, 65 is when we actually geared up to go to Vietnam. And then during that time, I think we made, they call them cruises, taking a battalion of Marines to a certain spot, and then sometimes when you was over there and then you had a break, we had R&R in Australia, which was a great trip, and then we had R&R down to some little islands called Pago. Pago was a great trip, and every once in a while you get to spend a few days in the Philippines, a few days in Japan, a few days in Okinawa, to kind of break up the go. And but at the same time, when they said go, that means everybody. All 500 people have a place to be and a place to go. And like firefighters and policemen, when you get a call, you respond. That's how it is in the military. Well, I have some great friends from the Navy, and we had great times on going on leave at different places. And then when we were in the United States, our home port was San Diego. I had a car, so I'd bring some guys, 3 or 4 guys, and I'd drop them off along the way because I was going up to Northern California, Porterville, where I was raised and went to high school and what have you. And then on Sunday I go back and start picking everybody up. And all them trips was great. We had good times and stuff, and both ways and both ends. And then one year after the ship had to kind of be rebuilt and so we went into dry docks in Bremerton, Washington. So on the way, we went by Vancouver, Washington, which our ship was named after. And then when we got out of dry docks, which we was in there a few months, we lived off of the ship in a little house. Three guys, me and a couple other guys rented a little house, and so we would just have regular day duty, and then we could go to town. So that was a great trip to Washington, around the Seattle area, Bremerton area, and then it was a great trip up to Canada. How the people all respected the military every place we went. Back then you had to wear your uniform. You couldn't wear civilian clothes on the military base. You just to get off of the base, you couldn't have any military clothes on the ship. And but I was able to take my car and my clothes on the ship, and then they offloaded it in Bremerton, Washington, and I was able to drive around the area there for a few months, which was a great, almost like a vacation. Just go to work, like 5 days a week, and the rest of the time you're off, like a regular job.
I don't remember.
Okay, well, we're back in San Diego, and so I bought some rings, and we came. Her brother Doyle and I came up to their house, and I'm not sure if it was probably 65, maybe 66, probably 65, 1965. And then I asked her to marry me and asked her dad, and so yeah, it all worked out good. It was a kind of a special trip because for some reason that time we hitchhiked from San Diego to Los Angeles, and and we walked here and there around town, getting over to where they live. And but it was a great trip. It was worth it. I still got a woman left for doing that. I still got a woman left for doing that.
Is there anything else that you think I forgot to ask that you maybe want to share about either your experience in the Navy or just in general?
No, just thank you. And I love this United States of America, and I hope the young people in college and in service and whatever you do, please help support the United States of America and keep us free.
Okay, well, Jamie and my brother and everyone on the USS Vancouver were going to be cruising up to Washington State, to Bremerton, to go into dry dock, and that's where they scrape the paint off the ship and repaint it and get it prepared to go for overseas. And so before they left, Jamie asked me if I would write him, and I said, of course, I'd love to write you, that's great. And so I did. I wrote him a couple letters, and then he wrote me, and I sent him a letter once, and I chopped it all up and made a jigsaw puzzle out of it, and he put it together, and he thought that was pretty entertaining when he was bored stiff. So anyway, then he sent me a radiogram, and my mother got it because I was not at home. And that's when they called over a message over the telephone. And it said, Happy Valentine's Day. I just wanted you to know that I'm always thinking of you. Love, James. And so I got that radiogram, and I thought, wow, there's 3 James. One I called James, and one was Jim, and then one was Jamie. But the guy said James. That doesn't sound like James. Mom said, I think it's Jamie. And I said, well, I don't know. So then like a day later, I got a Valentine's Day card and said, I hope you enjoyed the radiogram. And I thought, oh, it is Jamie. And then the next day, I get a package in the mail, and it was a heart-shaped box of Valentine candy. But it was very unique because most of them are red or pink, and mine was yellow. And without him even knowing my favorite color, he sent me yellow.
Everything.
You know, I'm from a family of 10, and my dad always wanted to be a soldier, to go into the Army or the Navy and work for our United States, because that's where his, that's what he wanted to do. However, he had so many children at the time of when the World War II started. He had 5 children, and that gave him an automatic deferment. And so he could never really go to the military. But then he almost got the opportunity to go, but then his employer said, I need him too badly. My dad was a baker, and he was the one that baked the bread for the military. So they would not let him go into the military. So he didn't become that. However, I have an uncle that was previously in the Army years ago, before World War II, and he was out by the time his younger brother, my Uncle Carl, joined the Navy the day, not the Navy, he joined the United States Army Corps of Engineers, and that was the Air Force. And at that, it wasn't named the Air Force then. But anyway, he became a bomber fighter pilot. And so he was in the Army. And then after that, my brother Dale, who idolized my uncle, he became, he joined the Navy and fought for our country in the Korean War. And after that, my brother Doyle decided he was going to go in the Navy. And he fought in the Vietnam War. And that's when I met Jamie. He and my brother met in the Navy, and that was pretty awesome. And as I was checking other people in our family, I thought, oh my goodness, we not only have those, Doyle and my husband and Dale, but we also have nephews. I have 2 nephews that were in the Marine Corps, and actually they were in the Marine Corps not during any war years, but nonetheless it was a special time. They protected our country and our freedom. One was the guard for the president. That was his job. His job was to protect our President Carter, and that was Patrick. And then my brother Dick's 2 children, Ricky and Rusty, they were in the Army. And then my younger brother Denny, he also fought in the Vietnam War as an Army soldier in the bunkers down behind rice sacks and rats crawling around in the jungle. But he kept his story to himself. He saw too many things that he chose not to share. And so he was not celebrated like many others are. You know, I preferred to just live my happy little life, really. I didn't follow the news much because then I'd have nightmares, and I worried about my brother, and eventually I worried about my fiance that was going back over to Vietnam for the 3rd time. And so I tried not to pay a lot of attention to the news. I just wanted to survive it. And however, when I was growing up, and in 1965, and then when the riots in Watts, you know, I went to a school that was very diverse. We had many nationalities, many socioeconomic differences, but we never had riots, and we never were bothered by that. And I didn't see color really, so color was not a thing for me. And I was friends with many, many people, so, and different peoples of different background. So it didn't really I didn't see what was happening really. And I wasn't fazed by it as much as others were who are fighting in downtown Los Angeles or the ones fighting overseas. So I lived my happy life. I was thankful for my mom and dad, my large family, and the ones that I did have. Well, Grandpa and I, we knew that was going to.
Sorry, I keep saying
Oh, I'm sick. Oh, darn. Okay, you're going to have to edit that. Okay. Jamie and I, we really loved each other, but I got to start from the very start. He asked me to marry him way early in our relationship, in March actually. Michelle, I have to wipe my nose. Will you get rid of this one? Okay. Anyway, in March, and I said yes, and then he went off to the ship, and he says, okay. We walked downtown our little Highland Park street and looked in the jewelry stores, and I showed him the kind of rings I like. And then when he left, I thought, what did I do? Because I was scared to death. So I came home crying one day from work, and my mom said, what is the matter with you? Did somebody accost you? No, I can't. Jamie wants to marry me, and I told him yes, but I can't. And he's going to bring me a ring, and I can't put it on my finger. And she said, what? And I said, I just can't. I'm scared. So he frightened me. It was all too soon. So he came home. My mom made me call him on the ship out to sea. They had gone out to sea, and so they took they had a line there, and they took him the phone, and he found out that I said, don't buy the ring, so then it upset him, and he came home that very next day, and we had a long talk. Well, we decided that we weren't going to get engaged right then. But 3 months later, I came home from work, and I was surprised by Jamie and my brother, because they weren't supposed to be there. They said they weren't coming, but they had hitchhiked through up to Los Angeles, and then through the gullies and the wash. And when I came in the door, I was walking to my bedroom to put away my purse, and he's right there in the doorway. And then my brother, my mom and dad were right behind him. And I turned around, I said, what's going on? He said, will you marry me? Right in the middle of my bedroom door. And of course I said yes.
Tell me a little bit about what, like you already told me, you cut out a puzzle piece and kind of, wrote that to him to give him something to do on the ship. But what other kind of letters would you write? Like he was saying that, you guys wrote a lot of love letters because he was like, oh, you're so cute, I'm thinking about you kind of thing. But what would you write? So maybe if it was a little bit different or if it was the same thing.
I would write things that I didn't know about. I wanted to learn. Excuse me. Anyway, but I would tell him about my day and my work schedule, and I had a simple life, and he would worry about me riding the bus to work, to downtown Los Angeles. But I would tell him that I found a little troll, a sailor troll that I kept, and I told him about that. And I made little charms on a little charm machine in downtown Los Angeles that said, I love Jamie, and short timer, because he was a short timer. So I wrote him about that. And, so my letters were a little bit different. I wanted to know about married life and what we were going to be doing, because I didn't understand a lot. I was very naive. So I found an article in a magazine. It was called The Bedroom Story of 1966. And I didn't understand part of the article. So I sent it to him on the ship. And he wrote me back and said, that was an awesome letter and a great story. Don't ever send me a story like that. I'm on a ship with a bunch of men. I still didn't get it, but I understood that I was not to send those kind of stories. But I still have that story, and I'm going to read it again in that magazine someday. Maybe I still won't understand it, I don't know. I was always looking for something that was about the Navy. This. And I was so happy because trolls the first time I had ever seen one of these little trolls was in 1966. And they might have been around before, but I saw this little sailor guy. Sorry, Michelle, can you cut all this out? Oh, shoot. Sorry. Here.
I can pause. Do you need to answer it, or you're good?
No, I'm okay. I'll call Robin back.
Okay.
Sorry. I don't know how to get...
Okay. Just restart your little story.
Okay, wait a minute. Here. I would toss that to you, but I'm afraid it'll break. Okay. Okay, this little troll, it meant a lot to me because I found it in a smoke shop, and that I worked in the Crocker building at 5th and Spring, downtown Los Angeles, and there was a little smoke store where you could buy cigarettes and cigars and books and trinkets, and he had this little Navy man. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this could be somebody that could just be my company when Jamie's not here. And so this is why it was so special to me. It was something new, I'd never seen it, and now I have a little sailor troll, and I've had it all these years. See. You know what? We are free to state our own opinions. We're free to dress the way we want. If we are decent, that's what I like. But if someone wants to, I mean, like you see, not so much anymore, but young men wearing their pants down below their underwear and their underwear hanging out. Well, they're free to do so. It doesn't look nice. I don't approve of it. But you know what? No one's telling them that they can't. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate that we can get in the car and go wherever we want. My husband and I travel. I'm not sure that that's as easy in other countries. However, I've never been out of the country other than in Canada and Mexico, which is not so different.
I guess just tell me about all that.
Oh, okay. My family, it means everything. You have to cut some of this out. But, I don't know. My family of 10, my siblings, my mom and dad, they worked hard. They worked hard to have a family and to grow and to do better, to earn a living and teach their children the responsibilities that they have to carry to be good human beings and respect others and others' property. And when I met Jamie, he had the same philosophy about respecting others, genuinely respecting others, and being humble when you do get something. You don't want to be a show-off or think you're better because no one is. So those are the things that I want to teach my children. Just general respect, opening doors and saying please and thank you. That means the world to me. It makes everyone feel good, and that's my goal. And to have my family near me and to see them learning the same values, it's awesome. Yeah. Michelle, I think first of all, you want to, in your life, go for what you want to do. Meet your goals, the ones that you set, but don't be afraid to be flexible because you can always fit it in. People get wrapped up in one thing and then they're afraid to veer off the course a little bit, it's okay. It's really okay, but you want to be honest to yourself, true to your feelings. If you feel like this is something that you need to do it. If you are with somebody that they really feel like they need to experience or get a certain job, they need to go and do it, and then come together and get an understanding for it. Because you have to trust one another, first of all, but give yourself a chance to meet your goals.
So on that note, can you tell me what you guys have done to like stay married for 51 years? Like say in a way that, not like advice necessarily, not saying like, when you want to be married for this long, you have to do this. Like say like we did this, we did that kind of thing. Like we've been married 51 years because...
I feel like we've been married for 51 years because we do so much together that we he came home and we were engaged. So he rented a little room, and he lived in an old motel. It's called the Monte Vista Arms. And he loved it, actually. He paid $10 a week. And across the street was his barber and his cleaners and a little cafe. And so when he was not at my house eating dinner or just enjoying everyone, or we were out on a date or something, then he was there, and he had his own little town, so to speak. That was hard for me when he would, I don't know, it just wasn't used to having to take time out of my day. I worked, I would come home, I'd want him to come to my parents. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to go ahead and eat at the cafe. I thought, oh, we're only a mile, but he's going to eat at the cafe. But that's what I didn't, I couldn't get. But we weren't married yet, and it wasn't like we could be together that way. So anyway, that was an adjustment. But then my parents didn't make it any easier because Jamie was living in his apartment, but then he started spending more time at our house. He would bring food to our house. So my mom would, you don't have to bring food here. He says, no, I'm eating every meal here. I'm going to help you with the food. And then he would fall asleep on the couch, and my dad said, you know what, you're spending more time here than in your own place. You can just pay us $10 a week, and you can have the back bedroom. So then that's what he did. But then Jim decided, this is not working. We were supposed to get married in April, from August to April. He was home in August, and we're going to wait till April to get married. That was too close. Our proximity was too close, and he didn't like it. He didn't like having to worry with that. So he said, what do you think? Do you think we can be married in November? And I said, really? I said, yeah, how much money can we save in 6 weeks? I don't know. We were able to save $600, and so then Jim sat down and talked to my dad and said, Nancy and I are going to get married on November 5th. Would you and Mom want to come to our wedding? So my dad sat us down and gave us a big talking to, saying how important it was for us to wait. Generally, servicemen, when they get out of the service, they're not really stable, and they don't get a stable job, and they're uncertain, and then life is just that much harder on you. So you might want to be more stable and wait until April. And so we listened very politely and to my dad, and I thought for sure that we weren't getting married until April. And Jim stands up and shakes my dad's hand and said, so are you going to be at the wedding on November 5th? And my dad said, yes, I'll be there. End of subject. And so then it was just fun, because then we started planning our wedding, and we made certain that we had enough money for our own apartment. We had it rented, set up. Neither one lived in it, but we had it rented, set up. So when we came home from our honeymoon, from our wedding, we would have a place to live, and that's the way we did. So it was pretty cool. But I think Jamie was more responsible and understood those kinds of things. He had his own house up in Washington, and he charged his couple buddies. They three went together, but he was the one that rented the house, and they paid him, and he paid the rent, and so he was in charge of all that. So he knew what it was to have run a household and work a job. And when he started a job, he never left one. He never left the job unless the job ended. Like his service, it ended. He started at a job and he worked there for 18 years, and then that owner sold to another owner, and so they kept him for 10 years, I guess. And then he worked another 8 years with that in the same building because a new owner. And then that job ended and he went to Lockheed. And when that job left to, I think it was Georgia, we had our family and we didn't want to move there. And they offered him a job to go to Georgia, and we could have lived in a big house for the money he was going to be making and a nice place and be uptown, but we didn't want to leave our Santa Clarita area. We felt comfortable here, happy here. My children were stable. They were good citizens growing up, and this is what we decided that we would do with our life. So Grandpa played Mr. Mom, I don't know if you knew that, for 10 months. And I was working part-time. I always worked part-time. I loved working, but not full-time. But when he lost, the last job went away, he networked for new jobs for 10 months before he started working for Aero Engineering, and was there for 22 years and still consults with them. But it was awesome because thinking back on my dad saying how it's hard for a serviceman to be stable. It wasn't for Jamie. He did the best. So that's our life.
Just wanted to say something to the people who are young today.
I would say, it's hard to tell someone how you just need to be careful and you need to be smart about things. I don't know, I think we had guardian angels, and like that one song that the one country song, Wild Angels, kind of helped Jamie and I. And but you have to really believe what you're doing, and then stick to your word, and that's part of your growing up and your teachings, to be true to what you say. Don't just say something and not mean it. And if you do, you better explain yourself and figure it out. And that's what I had to do. When I thought I was going to get engaged, or this is not working right, and that's not right, and it's not right for me right now. So you have to be careful, because there's so many outside things that are tempting, and that's all. You have to be true to your values and what you say. Otherwise, you hurt yourself, and it ripples out to the whole world. So you don't, not just your general family, but friends and people that look to you and look up to you. And then if your word's not true, then you're not worth much.
Well, we respect the decisions that our upper people for the country make for the United States of America. And I fly a flag in the front of the house every day to show respect for our country.
And I help Grandpa, no, not Grandpa, I help fold the flag when he brings it down so it doesn't touch the ground. We both stand up when the national anthem is played and for all the ball games. And just in general, be proud of our country and those that serve it.
Awesome. So what do you guys do with your free time now that, as a veteran, what do you do?
Well, we like to travel. Like next week for our 51st anniversary, we'll go down to the river for like a week. And then, so we usually do a couple of vacations a year. And sometimes we go to shows or different places. And most all places you go where there's big public gatherings, they recognize veterans, different service members of all service branches, which we enjoy that part of it too.
Oh, definitely. How proud I am of you. I'm proud of you because your sense of humor and your stability and all the strength that you have in carrying everyone through car wrecks and taking care of my siblings' children when they needed a place to stay, and when others needed a place to stay or opened our doors without even a question. You were the person with the strength, and I'm proud of you, and I'm thankful that I got you.